All right. Wow, I think we have solved all of America's problems today, don't you? I mean, we started out with a lot of problems, and if more people would listen to today's podcast, all of them would be solved.
You'd be better off as a human being if you just paid attention.
Yeah, except we solved everything except what freaky condition is making it that Tom Cruise never ages.
Yeah, no, that one we have no answers for.
No answers for. But today's show you do not want to miss. It's great fun, and you'll learn a lot. I mean, because I did. I did because I was listening to another show while we were doing this one. Here's today's podcast. Brought to you by Relief Factor. If you're one of the millions of Americans who suffer every day from pain, listen up. There is hope, and it comes in the form of Relief Factor. Every day I see testimonials from people who have tried Relief Factor for their pain and gotten their life back. And I know it can happen because it happened to me as well. I want you to try Relief Factor. If you've given up, don't. Get back into the game. Get your life back. Do the things you want to do and love to do. So, don't struggle with the pain. Just try it. 70% of the people who try it go on to order more because it works for them. It works for me. Not a drug, but created by doctors, and you can get a 3-week quick start just for $19.95. $19.95, try it for 3 weeks. You want a drug-free, natural way to get your life back? Go to ReliefFactor.com. It's ReliefFactor.com.
You're listening to the best of the Glenn Beck program.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Just want to remind you, it's Tuesday. Feels good, doesn't it? It is Tuesday. Pat Gray is joining us from Pat Gray Unleashed, and we appreciate you making it in today.
Oh, it was hard.
It wasn't?
It was hard. I was driving around lungs like crazy. Huge piles of lungs in the from
the 9 millimeters that just blow that organ right out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I got to work, I had to climb over a 15-foot pile of lungs to get in the door.
See, that's dedication.
That's dedication.
I wasn't going to be stopped by a bunch of lungs.
Ain't no mountain of lungs high enough to stop him.
Thank you
from coming in.
I don't know why they pile them like that. They could spread them out over a block or two. But
no, you got to, the lung plows come out, and they just need to
and then just push them.
There's a supermarket.
Okay.
You go into some of the supermarkets here in Texas, and they've just plowed all of the lungs at the back of the parking lot, and it's huge.
Oh yeah, Lung Mountain,
huge. Well, here in Texas, lungs outnumber people 2-1.
Really?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
2-1.
No one talks about that.
No one talks about it. No one talks about it.
We should
Same
be
with
talking
kidneys.
about that.
You shot, as Joe Biden says, they'll blow that organ right through you with a 9 millimeter.
Yeah, but if it's only a 22, it sticks right in there. It stays right in your lung, and which is good.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's good for the bullet to be jammed into your lung.
When Booth shot Lincoln, that bullet stayed in his head, didn't go clean through,
and he was fine.
And it gave the doctor an opportunity to stick his finger in the hole and try to dig it out.
Oh,
that's true too. He did, and I thought of that when
that's
thought of
very, very hygienic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. He didn't wash his hands, but. I thought of that today when I read this from Joe Biden, where he's like, and it gets us, an opportunity to get in there and take that bullet out. Well, wait, what?
Does anybody believe that conversation actually took place with a doctor? Because I'm having a hard time.
Well, when you remember that his wife is a doctor and
right.
I'm a doctor.
Well, yes, that's true. Could have been any doctor.
Could have been any doctor. Could have been any
and
doctor.
It could have been any hospital because he doesn't remember. It was some trauma hospital, the biggest one there.
Yeah,
then or now, I'm not sure. The biggest trauma hospital.
I really thought he had made a mistake and was talking about a different type of weapon and just said 9 millimeter.
No, he's 9 millimeter. It's very dangerous.
Because we've had a lot of military guys in here. We've had a lot of high-level security guys in here over the years.
Yeah,
talking about preparedness, and
they all make fun of me for my 9 millimeter.
They say I feel like the 9 millimeter is the thing they look down on.
It is
it's not really going to work in one of these situations.
Yeah, they've all said 9 millimeter is like a 380. It's the minimum to do the job, and you might have to fire off a couple of rounds.
Oh wow.
Okay. It's a 45 or a 357 will tear you up.
Even
That'll
when it's
stop you.
blowing your lung out of your body?
Well, you have two.
You have two.
Oh, okay.
Again, you have two.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm throwing this out there, but should
know
we
that-
consider mandatory third lungs? Because there's so many shootings here in Texas. All of our lungs are all over the side
We
of the
don't have a
road.
problem with fingers, do we? And fingers outnumber people 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
10 to 1.
Approximately.
And you don't see a lot of fingers on the side of the highway, do you?
No, you don't.
No.
No.
You don't.
When's the last gun battle you saw where they blew off 10 fingers?
It's rare.
I've never seen
it's
one.
rare.
I've never seen one.
Never seen one. So that's because we got rid of the really evil 10 millimeter, which could blow off the fingers. That's why they
Right.
were called 10 millimeters.
Because it would blow off all 10 of your
All
fingers
10 of your
at
fingers.
the same time.
Yeah. Now we have to wait for 4th of July to be able to blow fingers off.
Have you noticed that they've switched from the AR-15 now, and now they're going after the handgun as
Handguns.
well?
Yeah. I mean,
They're
look
going
at-
after handguns
We were
now.
just talking about Canada before you came in and how they're going after this. Remember, this is what Nixon wanted.
Yeah, I know.
People
Handguns.
think of it as hardcore conservative. He wanted to ban handguns.
He was not conservative.
No, he was not.
No, I mean, he was certainly more conservative than John Cornyn and Mitch McConnell. You know,
It's hard to know.
because those guys are diehard conservatives.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. John Cornyn is like, whew, all right, Second Amendment is safe. John Cornyn's on it.
I just hope, and I don't know. I hope that this is an effort by the Republicans to say that they had some conversations and they were talking, and that's all it comes to. I mean, there are
I'm a
some
little
low
nervous
hanging
about
fruit things you could do in reality that we would actually agree with on mental health and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible they could come up with something that would make sense. But
Would you favor? I think the last loophole probably on the background check is person to person. Like if I want to sell Glenn
yeah,
a handgun,
very small
would you
percentage.
favor a background check in that instance?
This would be the universal background
Yeah.
check, Bill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very popular. This is why they talk about it often.
Yep.
I don't like it, but I might. I'd have to think about it.
The thing
I'm
is, if
not
you give
sure
them an
I
inch,
would.
they're going to take a mile, and that's true.
And you know, does that include family?
Yeah, the Mansion Toomey
No.
bill gave you an exemption for family
Family?
transfers and a couple of other things.
Because I'm not going through
again-
with my family. No,
Yeah, to
my
give it to your son?
and
That's
my
stupid.
daughters get my guns.
Yeah.
we should also point out this has absolutely nothing to do with the shooting. The person went through a background check,
Right.
So it has.
I don't
it's
know that there's
totally
ever-
unrelated to this whatsoever.
Has there ever been a mass shooting that where the guns were obtained in that way? I don't think so. Not that I know
No,
of.
I believe the guns that Obama's administration smuggled over the border
Oh, yeah.
did
Yeah.
come back here and
They
literally
sure did.
were used in
Yes.
shootings.
Of a border
So
patrol
that's
agent, and then they turned
that's a
up
really
in
good one.
Paris,
But
if you
again,
remember right.
Yeah.
I think conservatives can look at this. Some conservatives like the red flag law thing, especially if it's very narrowly crafted. Some people like the 21 and older, right? We already have 21 and older for handguns. Maybe they should be AR-15s too. Again, you can make legitimate arguments that there's some reasonable thing to approach until you see Canada. Until you see what they will do with these inches, as you point out, Pat. They will take a mile. They will
you
turn it
cannot-
into what Canada is doing now, which is banning all firearms. That is what they are in the middle of doing.
Can you negotiate with somebody who says, I want to kill you and your whole family?
No.
Why? Because I'll say,
they're
okay, so
unreasonable.
I only kill your daughter.
Well,
You were
Okay.
Overton windowing
Or
me
I
before?
only- yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or I get your backyard of your house. You know what I mean? You can't negotiate because their ultimate goal is to kill your family. They haven't changed that goal. These guys are saying they're going to take all the. They want to leave you with 22s. That's almost a cap gun. You can kill a squirrel with that. Literally, you can kill a squirrel with a 22. So, no, I don't think so. They won't leave you with the 22. They are talking about taking 9mm guns off. That is the most popular handgun in America. and they're talking about taking that away. No, I can't negotiate with you.
And they know they just can't be honest in this country. The country has a gun culture. People, generally speaking, love the idea of being able to defend themselves. They did a poll recently that was not about repealing the Second Amendment, which is obviously what their goal is here, by the way. I mean, it's 100% what they want.
Sure
when you
is.
hear them talk about it, they talk about, turning around violence in these incidents. You can't do it with the things they're proposing. They're just giving you a small step on the way to eventually overturning the Second Amendment and taking away your gun. And when the American people were polled just on handguns, should there be a law, not a constitutional amendment, but just a law that would restrict you from being able to buy a handgun, it was 80-15 against. They know they are so against the American people. They have to lie to them.
Yeah, and they do
and do
continually.
these things like, oh, well, we only want common sense gun control. Well, none of those things that they're suggesting that are common sense gun control would do the things that they're saying they would.
Yeah.
Even they keep citing Australia. None of the proposals that they're actually admitting they want are anywhere close to what Australia did. In this country, implementing Australia would be taking 100 million guns off the streets. They're not even proposing those things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are just lies, and they're trying to get to where Canada is going.
Let me give you where what we should be talking about. I don't know if you read what happened in Charleston, West Virginia, this over the weekend, but a family was having a big graduation party at an apartment complex. And a guy is speeding through the complex. He's stopped by police. So he drives to his apartment. He gets a semi-automatic rifle, and he goes and he's going to fire, into that crowd of people. He's firing, doesn't hit anybody. Two police officers, same one that pulled him over, they arrive. They confront him. He fired a shotgun at them, wounded both of them, and took them out of action. And then what happened? A woman who was carrying a concealed gun and a concealed carry permit, she takes it out of her purse and shoots him.
Dead.
So, end of that one.
Threat.
She saved 40 people from being killed. Now, my question is, if the gun was the villain last week, why isn't the media holding up the gun this week and showing a picture of that very brave gun that saved 40 people? Because it's obviously the gun that did it.
Doesn't quite fit the narrative.
No, it doesn't.
They'd rather just keep lying about the Second Amendment, that it's not absolute, that you couldn't buy a cannon when the Constitution was ratified, which you could, and people did. And then the other thing he loves to talk about is that there's no Kevlar on deer as they're running through the forest.
According to the
over and over,
my gosh,
according to the Journal for Quantitative Criminology, armed citizens use guns to defend themselves at least 989,883 times every year.
Oh, wow.
According to the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology,
Wow.
They say gun owners defend themselves on an average of 1,884,348 times a year. A study by the CDC estimates that an annual defensive gun use range from 500,000 to more than 3 million every year.
That's
Now,
incredible.
How come we don't hear any of those stats? Think about the number of deaths. Think of the number of rapes, robberies, criminals that aren't caught. Think about all of that when the CDC says between 500,000 and more than 3 million every year. Why don't you hear that? As Pat said earlier, doesn't really fit their narrative. Our narrative is the truth. This is the best of the Glenn Beck program, and don't forget, rate us on iTunes. I know what you're thinking. Glenn, you seem more confident today. Yes, well, my friends, that started last night. I applied my new secret weapon for confidence. I call it Sweat Block. Guess what it does? The Sweat Block wipes are applied at night and protect you from embarrassing or uncomfortable sweat for days. Here's the best part. It really works. Sweat Block was developed by a Harvard doctor who was tired of, getting up front of people with, sweat tacos under his arms. His problem is now our solution. If you're like me, and you might not suffer from excessive sweating, but when the lights are on and I'm on stage, the underarm faucets kind of turn on once in a while. It's a lifesaver for your pitch-giving, hard-working, date-going average people. A godsend for you Jeffy-like sweaty beast. I mean, I don't know how you... Anyway, if you have an awkward teenager, do him a favor. Arm him with Sweat Block. Also, try the deodorant stick. Best I've ever tried. Get it all today. 20% off. Sweatblock.com. Promo code Beck. Or at Amazon. Hello, America. Hey, I've got good news. It's Tuesday. Right? Who's not for that 4-day work week? Yeah. I mean, we'll become Italy, where, you mail something off and long after your death, some guy comes and says, hey, no, this was just delivered to you. It was written back in 2022. You're like, wow, on paper. They haven't had paper for 40 years. It'll be like that, but 4-day work week I'm into. Anyway, I'd like to play Be or Not the Bee. And you tell me, because I can't tell anymore, what a real story is and what a bee story from the Babylon Bee is. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, Stu, I'll give you the headlines. FDA official in charge of evaluating new drugs hospitalized for mental disorder. Be or not the bee. Headline number 2, San Francisco schools to drop the word chief from job titles to avoid offending Native Americans. That seems so obvious that it
has to be a real one. That one has to be not the bee.
Southwest passenger who asked for permission and got it to masturbate on a flight gets 48 days in prison.
That seems like too high a punishment for a real
I was
story.
just going to say,
I feel like
48 days. No way.
In this society?
Yeah. Democrats propose replacing Memorial Day with day honoring those who have been misgendered.
How can that possibly be a real story?
IRS squanders nearly $1 billion in erroneous pandemic credits, even though they have a $100 million bonus to hire more people. Say they are too short-staffed to track down that $1 billion stolen from us.
Incredible.
Be or not to be?
I'm not sure if any of these are Babylon Bee stories. You could make the argument to me that all of them are real, which I guess is why the Babylon Bee is good.
Or all of them are Babylon Bee.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they should be Babylon Bee stories,
right?
They should be
so
fake.
let me give you top federal official in charge of evaluating the safety of drugs. Think COVID. Has been hospitalized against his will this month for an unspecified mental disorder, prompting concern over fitness for his roles, which includes making major decisions that impact public health. That's a real story. Just happened this weekend. While there are many options on the matter, next story, our leaders and leadership team have agreed that given the number of Native Americans in our community, we have expressed concerns over the use of the title chief, we're no longer going to use it. Real story. Southwest Airlines passenger, 34 years old, Antonio McGarity, was sentenced to 1 year of probation after pleading guilty last week to self-gratifying himself during a Southwest flight from Seattle, making more sense, to Phoenix. Apparently, he was sitting next to a woman on the flight when he exposed himself shortly after takeoff. He then said, to the woman, "Do you mind?" And according to another witness, she put her hands in the air and says, "It doesn't matter, does it?" I think that's just surrender. That's just like...
that's not permission. You can't... If you've pulled it out already, you don't get to ask for permission at that point.
Well, he thought her answer was kind of, quote, kinky, end quote.
I think this is just her not wanting to get murdered.
Yeah, and just saying, really common sense. If you're asking that with your wiener in your hand... Does it really matter?
Right.
Does it matter?
Like we say, learn, then vote. The order is important. Right. The same thing here. Right.
Yeah, okay.
You have to get the permission in advance from beginning the procedure.
That was a real story.
Of course it was.
The IRS, despite getting a 6% budget increase and an addition of 10,000 new IRS agents, the IRS claims it just can't spare the resources to recover almost $1 billion in forgery and forged payments. Just can't. Where did I put that $1 billion?
Yeah, they'll be harassing tons of people in this audience for audits this year.
By the way, real story. And then there's this. Democrats have unveiled an official proposal to replace Memorial Day, which they are calling a problematic holiday, honoring white supremacist soldiers who died for a racist country, with a more inclusive day, misgenderorial day.
Wait, what was it?
Misgenderorial day. See, it looks...
Wait, who is proposing this?
Democrats.
No
This
way.
important
Are
day,
they really?
This important day will allow us to honor the true heroes, those brave, non-binary individuals who have been called he instead of Z.
All right, you got me. This is a Babylon Bee story. This is a Babylon Bee story.
Finally, the true heroes are getting their day of recognition, said Nancy Pelosi. Presidential Medal of Heroism will be awarded to one brave misgendered person each year. The first one is to be given to Justin Trudeau, who has often mistakenly been referred to as a he. And that is the...
That one is actually Babylon Bee, though. Yes. Thank God. At least one of them was. Because the rest of them...
No, absolutely could be. Mm-hmm.
What is going on? I honestly, and if you would have convinced me it was a Democrat, not Nancy Pelosi, who was super aware of...
If I said AOC.
If you had said AOC, or if you said, Ilhan Omar, or... Ileana Presley.
Yeah.
Like, I might have believed it. Yeah. It's just, the only thing is Pelosi just is too public facing to be the face of that particular movement. Now, of course, she'll advocate for kids being aborted seconds before birth and have no qualms about that whatsoever. But I don't think she'd go that far today.
So,
Next year,
today,
absolutely.
Today.
But today, no.
One other thing, just to bring you back to reality, let me give you a couple of good stories. Florida's sheriff, the law and order sheriff, Carmine Marcino, which I love a sheriff. Carmine, I got some friends. I'm just saying, we'll take care of business. You know what I mean? Sheriff Carmine Marcino responded to the Texas school shooting, saying, "You don't get to shoot our children. You bring deadly force into this county, and we are going to kill you." End quote. I take that from you, Carmine. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I love it. I love it. And then Thomas Massey had...
I think we should start calling him Tommy Massey. I like
little
that.
Tommy Massey. He's so cute. By the way, he is like he's a little mini Tesla. He's got so many patents to his name. Do you know this?
Yeah, he went to MIT.
Yeah, he's like, we did one right. Somehow or another, A smart guy got in there. Don't worry. We'll drive him. He'll be in a straitjacket in a week. He said, what's the number of murderers who have been deterred by the federal Gun-Free School Zone Act? Number of people that have been...
I can guarantee this number.
Yeah.
Zero.
Zero. The federal Gun-Free School Zone Act, he says, was a knee-jerk reaction in 1990 that has cost more lives than it has saved. Repeal it now. Let the bad guys know that unceremonious death awaits them if they target your kids. I am all for that. You know, I've seen these stories this weekend about, you know, dads who were soldiers who are now there, you know, with the AR standing in front of the school. I'm all for that. I'm all for that even in my house with my kids. Like, no, your dad's serious. You are going to clean your room. I'm for that. I'm for a show of force. I think it's good.
I mean, look, it makes sense to harden these schools. You know, you go through the evidence and you see that over the years, violence has generally gone down. Even violence in schools have gone down. We went over those numbers earlier last week. But there is a thing that's going on with these sort of spectacle shootings. This, you know, I want attention for myself. I want to be famous or infamous, and I want to do these things. And, you know, it hasn't just been schools. We should remember that most of these mass shootings do not occur in schools. They occur in other areas. But like hardening schools seems to be a really basic step we could take to deter that particular crime. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen 2 hours later at baseball practice, sadly. We don't know. But hardening schools seems to be a pretty basic step you could take to push back on this a little bit. You know, the left jumped to, well, security doesn't do anything when we got those initial reports that security officers were on site right when it happened. And then we found out they weren't. That wasn't true. And at the very least, we all know that every mass shooting ends. Every one of them, all of them end with armed security. It's just a matter of whether they're on site or not, whether they show up 20 minutes after it started or not. You can get them there at the beginning, and that seems to be the best approach.
Shouldn't we all remember that it was Jimmy Carter that gave us the phrase first responders? Mm-hmm. It was Jimmy frickin' Carter. Now, maybe the peanut thing worked out well, but other than that, I can't think of one thing that Jimmy Carter did that we should hold on to. Not one. Not one.
Habitat for Humanity? Was that him?
Yeah, that wasn't.
I thought he was involved in that, right?
Yeah, he went and built houses.
Oh, okay, that was it. I thought he had some sort of
I don't
foundational role.
Think so.
Well, maybe he made a foundation of a house.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
He helped pour
I think he
a
was
foundation.
just swinging a hammer, which, you know, I don't want to tear those houses down.
Right, so there you go.
That's good.
You got that.
You know, but, other than that, no, he was the guy who said, hey, America, wear a sweater, which is what they're telling us now. Mm-hmm. They're blaming the gas prices. We'll play the audio for you. Blaming the gas prices now on you because Americans just won't stop driving.
No, we won't.
No, yeah.
You're right. We won't.
It's weird. You know, we were the ones that kind of put the assembly line together so we could all have cars. And I don't know if you've noticed this. This isn't like, France, where you can walk across the whole country in a day. You know, it's not Germany. It's not Switzerland. And even Switzerland has mountains. Well, so do we. I don't know if you know this. I mean, the people who are really hurting are the people who live in the rural parts of our country, which is the majority of our country, by the way, that have to drive. They're farmers or whatever. They drive a truck. They drive 30 miles in to go to the work at the factory or wherever they work. That's not unusual in America to drive 30 miles. How are you afford it? At some point, you can't afford to drive in. And that's what they would say at the White House is the point.
You're listening to the best of the Glenn Beck program.
Remember, Stu, when I talked to you about 4 weeks ago about PADS? And neither of us had ever heard of it.
And what's it, PADS?
It was Presidential Emergency Action Directives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And we had not even heard of it at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The New York Times reports today, until now, public knowledge of what the government put into classified presidential directives, which invoke emergency and wartime powers granted by Congress and otherwise claimed by presidents, have been limited to declassified descriptions of those developed in the early Cold War. In that era, they included steps like imposing martial law, rounding up people deemed dangerous, and censoring news from abroad. What could possibly go wrong? Now, this was first started by Eisenhower in the atomic age, when we were afraid of nuclear weapons. If we would go to a nuclear war, there wouldn't be enough time for them to sit around, the cabinet and go, okay, so what do we do? They pushed a button and everything had to go. So they would make these directives beforehand, and they would say, this is for an emergency in case of a nuclear war. And the president would sign it, and then it would be held. So Congress doesn't have a right to look at these things because they're not actually enforced. It's kind of like our advice until the emergency happens, and then it becomes the law of the land.
How does it become the law of the land? What process gives the president the right to...
Emergency orders. If there's an emergency, the president has all kinds of powers. Now, I can't think of an emergency that might be on the horizon. Sure, there's the economic emergency that could happen. There's the energy shortage that might happen. There's a lawlessness emergency on the streets that could happen. But other than that, can you think of anything?
No.
There's the monkeypox emergency.
Mm-hmm.
I left that one out. There's the cheating at an election one that, would be really. There's the war emergency action that could be declared. But other than that, again, nothing to see here. So it's not been clear what the modern directives have been. Known presidential emergency action documents, those are called PADs. They've never been made public or shown to Congress, but the New York Times has been looking into George W. Bush. Now, why would you stop there? I think we all know why. Am I right? Several of the files provided to the New York Times by the Brennan Center for Justice shows that the Bush-era effort partly focused on a law that permits the president to take over or shut down communications networks in wartime. Remember that one? And people like your local radio hosts and your hosts on talk radio said, hey, for the first time in my career, the emergency broadcast system is being taken out of our hands. What the emergency broadcast system used to be is the White House would alert the radio stations. And I think it was WMAL in Washington would get the first alert. And then WMAL would hear the tones and they would say, this is a test or this is an emergency. If it was an emergency, they'd pass it on to another station, and that station would pass it on. Now, it would take like an hour to get all the way across the country to the West. So the West had already been wiped out, okay? But it's Seattle. Who cares? Anyway, so
that was their opinion at the time. It was like,
yeah.
No.
I remember, because I worked in Seattle, and I remember doing those tests going, if it's real, we're all dead anyway. So, hey, everybody in Seattle, you've got about 90 seconds to prepare. So that's the way the test used to work. Then back in the George Bush era, they changed it. He now can push a button in the Oval Office or wherever, and it immediately overrides all signals. So he's on television and every radio station. There is no other information that is coming out except from the information from the White House.
Didn't this happen in Austin Powers? Wasn't that his plan where he could just press a button and would overtake all broadcast?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
Just want to make sure.
I didn't see it, but yeah, we're probably taking directives from Austin Powers. And that's probably the thing that will
Dr.
make
Evil,
the
actually.
most sense all day to you. Apparently, lawmakers cannot interfere with these. Another file from the summer of 2008 mentioned that the Justice Department lawyers were revising an unidentified draft order in light of recent Supreme Court opinions. The memo doesn't specify the ruling, but the court had just issued the landmark decision on topics that relate to government actions in an emergency, one about gun rights in the United States, and another about the rights of Guantanamo detainees in court hearings. Well, that could be any one of those or all of those. Now, here's the thing. We got these through FOIA, but we didn't FOIA the government. We FOIA'd the George W. Bush Library. Now, no one knows why they didn't FOIA the Obama administration's records, other than he doesn't have a library and nobody's building one yet because graft? I mean, they're looking for the right place. So we don't know what happened with the PADs. They are still enforceable if the president would say, hey, nuclear launch, what do you have? And it's the Eisenhower one. He could still have that. We don't know what's in effect and what's not in effect. Many of them are classified. In fact, all of them are classified except for this group that has just been released. Apparently, they had, I'm looking for it here, I think 9,000 pages were not released because they're still classified. And I think they released 2,000 pages. So there's another 9, but I'm sure there's almost nothing on those other 9 that remain.
Probably everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's the best way to always assume. We've learned that lately. Just assume everything's going to be fine.
Isn't that frightening?
Yeah.
It's truly frightening. By the way, there's a couple of things here. Only half of evangelical pastors hold a biblical worldview. Now, this might be a little shocking for people who go to church. A study released Tuesday builds on another report from American Worldview Inventory 2022, which shows that 37% of Christian pastors bring a biblical worldview with them to the pulpits. Now, a biblical worldview is, does every person have a purpose and a calling? Do you have a purpose for being here? And can God call you to something? I'm asking you, Stu.
Why are you asking me without the echo on your voice?
Because I don't want you to feel damned immediately.
Oh, okay.
So, do you believe that purpose and calling?
Sure.
Family and value of life, those come from God.
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
This is a tough one
I
after
know.
the previous two, but yes.
Do you believe in creation? And this is weird. Creation and history.
I don't believe in history. I just believe in me.
Okay, right.
Uh-huh.
I believe in creation. Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, intelligent design. I don't know how he creates, but
Yeah, I don't find that question to be as riveting as some do.
Yeah,
like, I don't really care how he did it, honestly. But it's on him.
We got you there.
Like,
so you're saying dinosaurs aren't real?
Yeah. Like,
wait,
what?
I
don't know all the details to it. Wasn't there. I will say I also don't know how an iPhone works exactly, but I'm glad the texts go through.
But I don't believe in Steve Jobs.
No, he
never existed. That just all of a sudden appeared on a beach somewhere.
Right.
Let's see. You believe in sin, salvation, and relationship with God? Do you believe in behavior and relationships, the Bible, and its truth and morals?
I think, yeah.
Okay, I think those are all pretty easy. Only 37% of pastors believe in that.
Oh.
I mean, you might want to put that on the front sign. You know what I mean? Like, hey, come in, try our donuts. And we don't really believe what you think we believe.
Well, this happened to you, right? When you were doing your church tour.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day.
Oh, back in the day. We went to every church, every religion, because my wife wouldn't marry me without a common religion. And I'm like, I love God and everything, but religion...
This is a long time ago.
horrible.
This was not you at the time, though. You were not. This church tour happened in what? I don't remember what year it was.
99.
Wow, it was a long time ago. So
long time ago.
You were finding your way, and mainly because your wife wouldn't marry you if you didn't.
Right. I mean,
you're forced into it. Basically.
Right. I was forced into it. She wouldn't. Didn't believe in premarital sex either. And I'm like, okay, chickaboo, what's it gonna take? And she's like, God, and I'm like, here I am. I'm practically a god. Look at me. No, and
a Greek god.
A Greek god. She vomited. And then I went to church, and so we tried everything. I mean, I really liked the Jewish synagogue that we went to. Except you couldn't eat a lot of good things that I liked, and I don't speak a word of Hebrew. But it was in and out on Saturday. And it was pretty good. I've since then learned there's more than that. But I went to this church, and it was a what do they call those churches? Congregational, right? The white churches on the greens in.
Is it? I don't remember.
I think it's congregational churches, and they're non-denominational. And so I'm sitting there in the pew, and Tanya and I were listening. We're like, it's okay, it's church. And during the sermon, the pastor said, now, you all know that I don't believe in God, but if there is a God, we should serve him. And I'm like, hey, that doesn't make any sense at all. Okay. Wow. And that should be on the front door someplace. That should be, before you go in and sit down, you should just know our pastor doesn't believe in God. But if there is a God, maybe we should serve him. Good safety tip there.